Surrounded on one side by the ancient Mendip Hills and cradled in the heart of the Chew Valley lies the village of West Harptree, a place where time moves gently and community roots run deep. For 100 years, our village hall has stood at the center of it all, a place for gathering, celebrating, debating, and remembering. It's seen generations pass through its doors, old friends reunited, young voices echoing on stage, and neighbors lending helping hands. Today, we come together to celebrate a century of stories, of laughter and legacy, of the everyday moments that define village life. Let's meet some of the people who call West Harptree home and hear in their own words what this hall, this village, and this valley mean to them.
Morning, my name's Michael Tabner. I've lived in the village all my life and I'm 80 years old. The shop behind us used to be my father's hardware shop, and the yard used to be just up the lane there. I was born in Goose Cottage at the bottom of Ridge Lane. Yeah, it wasn't called Goose Cottage then, but I think that's what they call it now.
What did you do in the shop if you helped your dad?
Well, we used to help serve in the shop and weigh up nails and stuff like that, because they used to sell nails and go up in the yard and get a bag of cement and things like that.
What was the hardest thing you had to do?
Well, the hardest thing, I think, was shoveling sand and that. And when they used to have a load of cement come, we used to have to help unload that. Yeah, but I only done that sort of weekends, because I've always worked on a farm. Like I worked for Tilly Manor for a few years, and Lyons is down the road for 33.
You went to school here in
Yeah,
West Harptree?
went to school just down the road. Yeah, until.
And where did you have lunch?
We had lunch in the hall. We used to walk up to the hall.
At the hall?
Yeah, and any other activities we used to do in the hall. And then we used to walk up to the rec for the playgrounders and things like that. Yeah, so yeah.
My grandfather came here when the lake was built. My father grew up under the lake at Chew Park Farm. And we have a rose that originated at Chew Park Farm in the garden. Cousin Anne, she had a cutting. I have 2 sons and a daughter and a very hard-working wife. The eldest son and grandson are away this weekend on a rugby tour with Chew Valley Rugby Club. We've got suckler cows, about 40 cows, and we take the cattle through to beef, and they end up at Tesco's, and we lamb sheep. And for several years, all the lambs went to Pierce's, the butchers in Chew Magna, but he's give up now, so we take them to market. With the recent budget, it's making everybody sweat a bit, because nobody knows the outcome. But the livestock in this country, the cattle numbers and the sheep numbers nationally are in decline, so that's going to make prices more expensive. But if they import the American beef, that's a lot lower standard, so we don't want that. Well, this is the local topics and the history of everything that they show. And the Christmas party quiz is very good.
Yeah, food's good.
You like the bar there too?
And the bar staff are very helpful.
That's the right answer.
And we've enjoyed the film shows at the hall as well in the past.
Hello, I'm Elaine Avery. My husband Roy and I moved to West Harptree in 1984 from Bristol. Not long afterwards, we were invited to join a new Memorial Hall committee being formed to head off a proposal from a group of male villagers who wanted to turn it into a men's club against the wishes of the village as a whole. It seems that since World War II, West Harptree WI had administered the hall, arranging dances, socials and other events, but had been disbanded and the hall had become rather dilapidated. So the first task was to purchase new tables, chairs and crockery so the hall could be let to generate an income. And the upstairs was let to a local antique dealer as storage. The new committee organised Christmas parties, fun days on the rec, under-16s discos and other events to raise funds, to redecorate, install a new kitchen and double glazing. Some years later, with the help of a grant from Baines and a sizable bank loan, further improvements were undertaken, including roof repairs, rewiring, a new boiler, upgrading the bar, installing new lavatories and a disabled loo, and disabled access. And that's when the new lobby was created. Extra funding was needed to repay the bank loan, and for 2 years the committee organised a 2-day mountain biking event up at Lamb's Lear called Mend It Mania. Widely advertised, this attracted over 100 riders from around the country and was much enjoyed by them and their supporters, with the committee providing refreshments. Safety concerns sadly brought that to a close, but we were then invited to provide barbecue breakfasts for weekend vintage motorcycle meetings on the same site in 2 subsequent years. But even that wasn't enough, and in the end, the builder generously agreed to write off the outstanding balance of his account. Who would do that these days? Gradually, new committee members introduced new ideas, including a 100 Club, which since its inception has raised considerable funds for the hall and is still running. About 2018, a fresh committee was formed, which has greatly modernised the facilities and attracted multiple new users. Well, I hate to blow my own trumpet, but the plant stall outside my house has probably raised more over the years than anything else. But it's not just me raising plants, other people donate them as well.
A lot of people donate their
Other
plants.
people donate their surplus
So,
plants, yes. Later on this year, we hope to install a new heating system, which is going to be very challenging because we've got to raise probably in the region of 50,000, maybe more. So that's going to be quite challenging. But that's the main thing. We haven't been able to use the church over the winter because it's too cold and damp. But we're just starting again tomorrow, in fact, starting services again this summer.
Sue Bowden, and I'm part of the Bowden family, and we arrived in West Harptree in 1964, which is 61 years ago, to take over the shop, which was completely different in those days. It was very big, but it was a shop with no supermarkets anywhere. It's covered a massive area. We delivered all over the area, over the hill to Wells, over towards Weston-super-Mare, over towards Widderwood, over Widderwood and towards Bath. We did enormous orders to the farms and the big houses. They were collected in the early part of the week and delivered by 2 people at the end of the week. We had a lot of staff, and it was just a different business. And then, over the years, supermarkets started arriving in the 70s, which started changing things completely because people started going into town to get goods. We arrived in the middle of the night because my husband wouldn't tell me what it was like. He said it would be a surprise. We had 4 children at the time, under 5 and under, and I was about to have another child. So it was very exciting, and the village was very excited because there were very few outsiders living in the village. And the house was big and dark and quite threatening, but the staff were brilliant. They were very, very friendly. And 3 weeks after we arrived, I had Jane, our 5th child. And everybody was very helpful, actually. It was extremely good. We had a lot of staff, some of whom had been here since 1934 and gone through the war. Arthur and Iris had been here. The hall wasn't as it was now. It was a narrow, and they'd had lots of pantomimes. There was a lot of socialising. They had wine tasting, wine and cheese parties we had, and suppers and dances, always followed by dances. The men would clear the trestle tables away, and we always had dancing.
Hello, I'm Dudley King and I'm 79 this year, and I've always lived in the village. I went to school at Mrs. Vita's school, which is what is now known as the Newton Close, and Mrs. Vita was the butcher's wife. And the school was 2 classes, must have been 20 to 30 children, I'm guessing. And we performed I personally performed in Dick Whittington pantomime in the hall. Can't remember when that was, but I remember being a sailor in that. Yeah, Grandpa bought the farm and the Tilly Manor in 1917 at auction, when Newton Estate was dispersed. Yes. Oh, he mixed farmed, he made cheese. Yeah, and it was quite mixed. The farm was a bit scattered. There was quite a few 2 or 3 cottages on it. And also what's now known as Magpie Alley, which is pulled down now, of course. Yeah.
And
but
what did you do then here?
Yeah, this was all developed then, just after that. He sold that about 1983, I think. Yeah.
83.
My sister had ballet classes there, I remember that. Didn't go to them myself. 1 or 2, yeah, they were pretty lively at the end, yes. Yes.
You're a lively dancer then?
No, I'm not. I said the dancers got pretty lively on occasion.
Right.
Oh yeah, we had a bunch of about 76 acres right up on the hill towards the Cheddar Crossroads, and we used to walk 70 cattle in the spring up there for the summer, and we had to make sure everybody had their garden gate shut first. It was quite an operation, that, and that must have stopped in the 80s, I'm guessing, because there's too much traffic then.
Hello, I'm Hugh Moore. I was really lucky with my wife to live in Gournay Court in the village from 1970 right through until nearly 2000. And I thought I'd tell you something today about what Gournay Court was like during the Great War, during the First World War.
Which is why the hall was built.
Which is indeed why the hall was the reason for the hall being built. In 1914, the property Gournay Court was owned by the Duchy of Cornwall, and it had recently been completely refurbished and reinstated into a really high equality by the Duchy of Cornwall, because it was considered for a while that Prince John, a brother of George VI and Edward VIII, would come and live there. He never did. So the war started in August 1914 with Gournay Court in a really good state of repair, recently done. Within 6 or 8 weeks, the property had been handed over to the Voluntary Aid Detachment, which was a government-formed charity which largely was involved in distributing wounded soldiers as they came back from the front around the UK. The Voluntary Aid Detachment immediately commissioned the Somerset Red Cross to provide the nursing staff, and those people, the Red Cross recruited local people to work in Gournay Court. And within 6 or 8 weeks of the start of the war, it was up and functioning Army convalescent hospital. What happened was wounded soldiers came back to the main hospitals in Bristol. They were operated on, they were sorted out, and as soon as possible they were got out to make space for new people coming in, and were sent out to places like Gournay Court. Gournay Court operated throughout the whole of the war, and I don't know how many, but probably several thousand soldiers spent part of their time there recovering from the wounds that had caused them to leave the front in the first place. They would then have gone back to their unit, or they would have been discharged if they were medically unfit to fight. One of the interesting things is that throughout the whole of that period, a local professional photographer from Wells called Bert Phillips came he came once a week, I think, and what he did was came and took photographs of the soldiers and took them back to Wells and turned them into postcards, which he then sold to the soldiers when he came back. There are hundreds and hundreds of these photographs, and I have brought with me a small selection of about a dozen that I personally own, but scattered around us there are hundreds and hundreds of these photographs. The soldiers have sent them all over the country, and that is why occasionally we got people getting in touch with us in Gournay Court and saying, my uncle was there or whatever. And all of those things have helped me build up my knowledge about what happened. But it is really impressive to think of the speed with which the hospital got going and established, and how smoothly it and many other hospitals of its sort ran. And we moved in 1971. We brought our family up here. We had 4 children, and they were all brought up here. They all had a wonderful time living around here. And that was it. We lived there until about the 1998, I think, when there was just us here. So Jean and I decided to downsize, and because we were in our 60s by then, because I'm pretty old now.
So those 4 children are where now?
Well, they're the only one who's living here at the moment is Fiona Rochford. Fiona is my daughter, and she lives effectively next door to me here in West Harptree, and has done for a while because she helped me with my wife, who sadly got Alzheimer's. So, and the other children have all moved to different parts of the country, although one daughter did die fairly young.
So what activities do you recall coming to here at the Village Hall?
Well, I've been coming to the Village Memorial Hall ever since I came here, and indeed, when we were living there, the house was open, and lots of people in the village came in for all sorts of reasons. Loads of events were taking place. Many of the older residents will remember that. But we came here, and I always considered, and I sort of half jokingly said, that I considered that I was living in the upmarket village hall, because we had so many village events in and around the village. And several of the people in West Harptree had their children married on the receptions after the wedding had their reception, in the marquee on our lawn. We did all those sort of things for people.
Any party or event that you can particularly recall that you enjoyed?
Well, no, I can remember hundreds of them, but one of the things we did, Jean and I, Jean mainly, we allowed friends to have their children's weddings here, to put a marquee up on the lawn, and it's a nice location. And when that happened, the marquee was usually there for a few days after the wedding. So if the wedding was on the Saturday, on the Sunday, Jean and I used the marquee for a charity event, and we sold tickets for the charity event. We had things like Doctor's Jazz, and we had various people who were musicians who came. Marilyn Childs, some of you will remember Marilyn Childs. She organised concerts. We had concerts in Gournay Court, we raised a lot of money because we used to have Sunday afternoons when Jean and all her other ladies would, produce food, and the tables would be full. We had lots of events like that, like you do.
Chris.
And I'm Connie, and this is Cecily, and we live at the Old Bakery in West Harptree.
So we moved here in 2019. We'd actually sort of got family friends in the village, and we've been involved with some of the Christmas concerts. We've always liked the Chew Valley. It's a very pretty village, and we've always been very welcomed here. So it was a lovely place to move to, I think.
Yeah, we went to university in Bristol, and then we wanted to move out of the city into somewhere that had countryside access, but also access to amenities. So we had a 30th birthday party last year, which was great fun in the hall. We had a jazz band, and it was fantastic, lots of dancing. And then tomorrow, actually, we are having our christening for this little girl in the church just down the road, and then we're having a little party with all our friends and family back here in the hall, as well as doing a few clubs and activities that the hall presents. Hey. Yeah. Good.